And good afternoon, folks. Chief Meteorologist Nick Lilia here, taking a look at the tropical update for July 21st of 2020, brought to you by the folks at Pine Belt Gutters and Remodeling. They do roofing too, by the way. As we head through the next couple of days, we've got a little bit of activity out of the Gulf of Mexico and out into the open Atlantic. We've got the one which is kind of knocking on the door of the Gulf of Mexico right now. It's kind of hanging out toward the Bahamas and Cuba. And then the other one, which is kind of barely off the screen here, out into the open Atlantic. First things first, the one closest to home, a 30 to 40% chance of development here, as this one kind of drifts across the central parts of the Gulf of Mexico and then kind of curlicues back around through parts of Texas. Now, there is still an outside chance that this thing turns to the north sooner, and an equal chance that it kind of keeps on going back off to the west. It hasn't formed completely yet, so the models have a difficult time kind of holding on to wherever the center of the storm may be. And if you don't know where the center is, it's very difficult to figure out which direction that it's going. Although, from the modeling that we do have access to, the consensus is that it ends up kind of somewhere along the Texas coast as we head through the weekend and kind of into next week. Now, before then, it's still going to bring a mess of rain to parts of the Gulf Coast that aren't going to be directly impacted with landfall, so to speak. But do keep in mind that this is kind of slated to slide across the Gulf Coast. All right, down here, got Tropical Depression number 7. This was an area yesterday that only had a 20% chance of development. This came together pretty quick for it. And here we are, wind at 35 miles an hour, gusting to 45. Per now at 1,009 millibars. It's kind of halfway between the Cape Verde Islands and the Greater and Lesser Antilles. This is slated to become a strong tropical storm as we head through later week. I'm going to highlight right in here by Friday, 65 mile an hour. But by the time we get into the Caribbean, it's going to end up an area where it's not quite as conducive for not only the development, but for sustaining any kind of tropical system. It's probably going to get up pretty good as it makes its way toward Latin America as we head through the weekend and into the beginning of next week. Spaghetti plots, just real quick, for what's happening into the Gulf of Mexico. Notice, I really want to highlight this. This is where some of these models think the center is, and if we go back, if it'll go back, the National Hurricane Center says the center of the storm is right there. So we can kind of play a cursor for where that would be on this map, and that would be right about here. So right out the gate, there's already a difference between where the models think the center of the storm is and where the Hurricane Center actually thinks the center of the storm is. And again, this is why these spaghetti plots are sometimes, not worth a whole heck of a lot. You may ask yourself, well, Nick, why are you showing them then if they're not worth anything? It's just got to give you guys an idea of the spread, somewhere between the Louisiana coast and the Texas and Mexico border is still fair game. So there's still a long way to go with figuring out exactly where this is going to go. Regardless of where it goes, I still think parts of South Mississippi, Alabama, and the Florida Panhandle, even most parts of Louisiana, have a pretty good shot for rain out of this, and that's going to be the main concern. A little further to the south, with what was Invest 99L, now Tropical Depression number 7, you can see a lot of the spaghetti plots do the same thing as the cone. They basically just take this thing into parts of the Caribbean from where it is right now, and from there, we'll have to play the waiting game. As for the European model, in specifics, you can see that this one picks up on the one in the Gulf of Mexico, and then here's the other one back off to the east. By the time we get toward Thursday, notice that this thing in the Gulf is knocking on the door, makes landfall right around Saturday. At the same time, this one now is hugging the northern coast of South America, and it's getting kind of beat up, not only by the dry air, but from a fair amount of shear that it's going to run into the Caribbean. And then back in behind that, there's the third one that I was talking about as we head into the beginning of next week. Now, this is going to line up, unfortunately. Remember yesterday I was talking about, look at all the dry air that's out here. Well, there's still a ton of dry air, but just south of that dry air, it looks like the models are trying to paint in a situation where this one storm tries its best to develop and slide right underneath it and toward the Greater and Lesser Antilles as we head toward the middle of next week. Again, still got plenty of dry air out here. That's helping us out for whatever does happen, but keep in mind that our atmosphere is always in motion, which means that dry air can also move. And this next wave that's out here, knocking on the door of Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic and Haiti, by the time we get toward the end of July, and then, we got ourselves another wave coming off the coast of Africa. as we kick ourselves off into August. So pretty active setup as we head through the next couple of days. Real quick, I wanted to highlight our 500 millibar geopotential heights. So we've got the one into the Gulf of Mexico, then the other one that's kind of out here. Now this is going to be tough to see on this map, but this is not to show where the center of these storms are. Instead, I wanted to show as we head through Saturday, Sunday, and I want to get into next week here. As we head through next week, Monday, Tuesday, here we go toward Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we have one big ridge of high pressure out here, another ridge of high pressure in here, and the arrows here, I'm going to kind of draw in some arrows, are the direction that things kind of go as you move around ridges of high pressure. So whatever does develop out here, if it were to kind of go our direction, it would then get kind of bounced and roped around and maybe slide just off to the south of us, should, as we head toward the end of July, things look like this. But that remains to be seen. We've got plenty of time to get there, plenty of time to watch things. So there's a look at your tropical update for July 21st of 2020, brought to you by the folks over there at Pine Belt Gutters and Remodeling.